and donuts. We sell donuts.
Hey everybody, welcome to Blood and Donuts. I am Tony.
And I'm Chris. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, what's up? Here at the Blood and Donuts podcast, we will start by sharing an overview, facts, and first impressions. Then we will give you our rating before we go into a scene-by-scene discussion that is full of spoilers. But don't worry, we'll let you know before we do that. But Chris, why don't you go ahead and tell them how that rating works?
So we rate our movies on a 1 through 13 donut scale. 1 through 4 is terrible, and we are not going to recommend that. 5 through 8 is kind of like a mid-range. You can watch it if you have time, but it's not terrible, and it's also not great. A 9 through 12 is great. You'll definitely want to check out a 9 through 12. And 13, Tony, that's our Baker's Dozen tier. It's very rare, but it would be a masterpiece of a horror film and possibly one of the best of all time. You picked this week's movie, so you will go first when we rate, and we're both in the dark of each other's opinions.
It's a 2017 American supernatural horror film directed by Andy Muschietti. A group of 7 outcast children who are terrorized by a shape-shifting being which emerges from the sewer, only to face their own personal demons in the process.
Ooh, so it's kind of like it's kind of a Freddy Krueger thing where he kind of shows you your fears.
Oh my gosh, Stephen King ripped off Freddy. No, sorry. When did this novel come out? What is it? Did it come out in the early 80s?
I think it was earlier than that, man. I'll have to look it up. But I am a book reader, though, or a book listener. This is one of the first I listened to when I was started my Audible subscription or whatever. So I am well versed, and I'm gonna try to refrain from, well, that's not in the books, or I might do a few. This movie does a good job of subtly calling back to both the miniseries and the book, though.
So you think they this one did a good job of like transferring those elements as far as that goes?
Yeah, or showing little snippets of, you know, what was in the book and what the miniseries even may have left out. There are some nods here in this movie that the original movie, if you will, with Tim Curry, they didn't show in that movie, but they showed in this. So there's some pretty cool throwbacks.
I heard, and again, I haven't read the book like you have or listened to the book. So the girl in this in the book, does she have sex with all of them in the book?
In the book, yes. In the end of their childhood, to get out of where it is, yes. She does indeed.
Oh my goodness.
Have to do that, or they do that, and I think it's Stephen King described it as to make them feel good and bring happy thoughts, so that they could get out of its lair. And the book came out in '86.
Are you glad that they left that out?
Indeed, I am. Because it was a little gross in the books too.
Yeah. That's funny. So, one of my favorite childhood movies was Stand By Me. Did you ever watch Stand By Me? A bunch of kids on they're going to see a dead body, but it was directed by Rob Reiner. It's an 80s movie, but it was written by Stephen King. And what Stephen King movies do so well is they capture the teenager, the adolescent experience, and the dialogue of those children so good. And just like as an example, we went to the movies and we watched Tarot, and it showed a bunch of young adults, and their dialogue just did not match up with what young adults would say. And so this is very refreshing, a horror movie where the non-scary parts, the parts in between the horror, were really well done. It's such a good story, and I really enjoy these kids. I really enjoy when they're on the screen. I like their story better than some of the horror elements in this.
Yeah, you have kind of 3 like elements that you're following along with. You're following along with the horror, obviously. You're following along with the Losers Club and how they're kind of forming and stuff. And then you also have like the bullies in town who are kind of like the wild card. You never know where they're going to be and stuff. And it's crazy. I had a little quick fact on the kids. The producers brought the kids in like 3 weeks before filming.
Yes.
So they could like gel and become friends. And they got what they wanted after like 3 days. These kids were like best friends after 3 days.
That's awesome. And you can tell. I mean, it's on camera. So you can see the chemistry between this group. You have Billy, the brother of Georgie, He is the stutterer and kind of like the leader and the bravest of this group.
Yeah.
And his fear is the fact that he feels responsible for Georgie's death, right? So anytime there's water, he's kind of brought back into that, right back to that fear, right?
Yeah, I think his fear is just he feels responsible, like you said. And I want to say he might have been like faking sickness to not go out with Georgie when Georgie wanted to go play in the rain. So that's where I think that guilt comes
so he's
from.
a little bit of a coward too. So and that's why he's coming into being a leader, you know.
At least back then, yeah, he was.
And then you have Eddie. His mom has made him into a hypochondriac, and he has a fear of anything gross. His fear comes in the form of like a diseased homeless man, right?
A leper.
Is that what it is? Yeah. A leper. Okay. Yeah.
He don't want to go in the sewer with the gray water.
If I recall from the Curry series from the 90s, his character, the hypochondriac, he was not a likable person. You know, he was kind of a wimp and just like scared of, you know, it was just overdone.
Breathe. On. Yes. Look, can you stay here with my friend while I go get his medicine?
Whereas the kid that played this Eddie was funny and hilarious. You know?
Yeah, at least he went to the edge of the other kid wouldn't have even gone to the bare ends. He was just so scared of everything and always had to hit the asthma.
So good. So good. My favorite line is this is probably spoiling it a little bit. Who got the placebo thing? And he goes, "These are gazebos."
You know what these are? They're gazebos.
And he throws them. Oh, so good. And then then you have Richie, who was in Stranger Things. What's his? Do you know his actor's name off the top of your head?
Finn Wolfhard.
Yes, okay.
Is his character name or his actor name? And plays Richie Tozier, the comedic relief of the group, and it's so good. It's paced throughout like really well, like. If they're not getting haunted, we're laughing at Richie and all that kind of stuff. It's really funny.
Sure, in a ditch, all decomposed, covered in worms and maggots, smelling like Eddie's mom's underwear. Shut up.
His lines are
funny.
His lines are so well written and hilarious and so good. He has a fear of clowns.
Right, and you don't hear that until like the very end. I think he's the last one to get to see it.
Yes, he is. What I mean? Well, I mean, he probably have seen. Well, you know what? When they're out there in the stage and
in the garage, yeah, and it comes out of the screen.
No, well, there's that, but they're outside at some type of festival, and there's a clown on stage. And he kind of looks behind him. He looks behind and shut. But that's Bill Skarsgård, you know. So so I think he might have seen it beforehand. Beverly Marsh, she's the one girl who is in the Losers Club, and she has a fear of her sexual maturity. It's manifest in the form of blood. You know, you see her buying the old the Tampax there at the, you know, and she has these creepy old men around town, including her father, who are hitting on her, the pharmacist, and you know, and you just like,
well, I think she was hitting on the pharmacist just to let those guys sneak out with their bandages, but
he was creepy.
I think she also has a big fear of her father himself because he's a creep.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Just like the sexual maturity and how the men, like even older men, dads, just there's no good adults in this community of Derry in this in this movie. They're actually all used for like catalyst for these teenagers' fears. Every single one of them, even the bully, has a fear from his dad.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's this town. It's almost like, and I don't want to give too much away. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the podcast, but the town itself, it's like the adults don't pay attention enough, or they don't care enough to help out the kids. So the kids are kind of like on their own.
Yeah. And I like that setting. I like that 1980s kids on their own, riding their bikes around town. That's good. That's nostalgic to me. A lot of films that were like that back in the day. Mike Hanlon, his fear is manifest in the fact that he watched his parents burn to death in a building. He couldn't save them. So Pennywise uses that. Mike Hanlon, I feel like, was not used properly.
No, he was used in the the miniseries a lot better, I think, than in this one. Because in this one, he's like a coward, and in the miniseries, he's a lot braver, maybe even almost as brave as Bill.
Yeah, but you don't get a lot of dialogue from him. Not a lot of, he could have, they didn't write no comedy for him. You don't really find out a lot about him. Yeah. I feel like he was at least underused or underappreciated. Hey, audience, I just want to go ahead and remind you that we are also on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your audio podcast. So follow us there so you can listen to us at the gym on your commute to work. We also want to be your friend. So follow us on Instagram. Be our friend, I get tons. Yeah, check us out. I get tons of questions every week. Where do you get the swag? Where do you get the freaking Blood and Donuts iconic hat? Where do you get the stickers? All that stuff. We have a spread shop. The link is in the description. Every video that we come out, every audio podcast, just look in that description. Click on spread shop, and all of that is available to you. Ben Hanscom is the new kid. His fears manifest in the fear of isolation. He does research to fill his time, and then his research starts to haunt him there in the library as he's going through it. And then finally we have Stanley. His father is a rabbi, and his fear is disappointing his father, and his fear is manifest by a weird painting that is located in his father's office. And man, that's creepy.
The painting is creepy, and this kid's fear is everything. He's the worst of the bunch for me.
Oh, you don't like Stanley?
He never wants to go. He never wants to. He's like the first one to bail. And yeah, in chapter 2, he's not around for very long. So anyway,
Will Poulter, who we know from Midsommar, he's the guy that peed on the sacred tree. Remember him? Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's in a lot of things, but he was supposed to play Pennywise, but he dropped out due to scheduling conflicts.
Wow, that would be a weird Pennywise. That's a cool fact. I know that they auditioned like 116 people for Pennywise.
Really? I didn't know they went that hard
before they landed on Bill, and they picked Bill due to his like instincts being in line with what the character would do. And there's a lot of facts. I think a lot of mainstream facts people know is like they hid Pennywise from the kids, until it was time to shoot, so they could get that initial scare reaction. So the kids were in this creepy house. They had not seen Bill in costume yet. So when I think it's Eddie's character, when Bill comes out of the fridge and starts walking towards Eddie, that's like his first time seeing Bill dressed up, and it's a genuine scared reaction.
Oh, I love that. How about the way that you notice when you're looking at Pennywise's eyes, one of his eyeballs like looks off to the side, and they were going to CGI that in, but Skarsgård was able to do that on his own. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'll do that."
Yeah, you mean like this? And I think he scared dude from chapter 2. Who plays Richie in chapter 2? It's
I'd have to look.
Bill Hader.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's hilarious.
Bill Hader plays and yeah, he was like he asked Bill Skarsgård how he did hey, how'd you do that cool effect with your eye? He's like, oh, like this, and it like freaked him out.
Cool. He would
do that thing in the first movie where your eye kind of goes up when Pennywise. I don't know if you guys saw the movie, but when he senses something, he kind of goes like, bah, whatever, and his eye goes bah, like that. And I go, how is that a digital thing? And he went, oh, you mean this? And then he did it. I was like, ah!
It's creepy. So this film was a huge box office failure. It only made $712 million at the worldwide box office. Obviously, I'm joking. Making this the highest grossing horror movie of all time. This was a phenomenon. Did you go to the movie theater and see this? I did.
We might have. I don't recall. I know I've seen it a few times since its release, but I can't remember if I saw it in theaters. I want to say I did, though.
I remember going.
What an experience, though.
I went to the theater, and I think I sat on the third row because it was so full and packed in there. So this was
wow.
This film was huge, man. It was huge, and I think a big part of that is because of the book and because of the series. I mean, look back on that Tim Curry character. It was so iconic, and it was a made-for-TV movie miniseries, and so many people watched it. And he played that. He made that series. I'm sorry, but
he was the comic relief in that movie. He was comedy and he was horror.
And even though Skarsgård and Curry play two different characters, it seems, and two different versions of Pennywise. I appreciate both of them. I like both of them, and I think Curry did a great job. I think Skarsgård did a great job. Curry, I feel like, just had a little bit more on his shoulders. Like you said, he kind of carried that film. He had a lot more dialogue and had to do a little bit more. Whereas with Skarsgård, they used a little bit of CGI with him, and they also used like I don't know. I would have liked to see more of Skarsgård in this. He was just kind of in the shadows and didn't have a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, I don't think I could pick which one I liked better. Like you said, it's like apples to oranges. You can't really compare the two. I mean, it's the same character, but it's a different time and it's a different responsibilities. You know, this film really drove the story of the kids, the Losers Club coming together, and then you have it kind of sprinkled throughout. Whereas Tim Curry, he was, you know, the kids were kind of in the background and he was in the forefront. So, but man, this movie's it's definitely something special. Yeah. There's a turtle reference in here that is not in the miniseries as well, but it's only a book snob would know. So, but anyway, they're like holding a Lego turtle and they're looking for a turtle at the Barrens, stuff like that. I'm like thinking, oh, that's from the book. Okay, I got you. But that was it. You know, the kids gelling, bringing them together. That was something that really worked well, and it didn't take them long at all to just become best friends.
Yeah, that's cool that they did that fan service in there. I like that. When you're doing a remake, this is a remake. I feel like you really have to be careful to add some fan service in there.
It's not oversaturated. There aren't 7 movies and 3 timelines. You have the book, you have a miniseries, and then you have 2 other movies. So it's really just, it's not oversaturated in the market. So like when something like that did come out, you know, fans of the original miniseries and the book were eating it up. Are
you saying that there's not like 8 movies like they do with like Friday the 13th or anything?
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's just, it's not oversaturated in the market. There's not, you know, 13 movies or 15 movies like there are with the Halloween series.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the book, the miniseries, and 2 movies.
And if there was ever one that needed to be remade, it would have been one, because it was a made-for-TV type of movie. Probably not. It didn't have a big budget, you know. And now we have a lot more technology in 2017, or had a lot more technology in 2017. So this is a good candidate for being remade. Okay. Do you mind if I go ahead and get into my rating?
Do it, man.
All right, my pros, anything with the kids in it. These kids were amazing. We cite Black Phone a lot of times when we talk about child acting and how good it was. These child actors were amazing. They did great. And Finn, who played Richie, really stood out. He's obviously a great actor. He was from Stranger Things, and now he came into this, and he stood out as one of the highlights of this film. The acting, the dialogue, the setting of Derry in the 1980s. Love that. Love Pennywise makeup. And I thought Skarsgård did. I liked his version of Pennywise. I thought he did very well. Cons, some of the CGI took me out of it. You know, like some of the teeth and stuff by Pennywise, it would just like, open up and I'm like, oh, well, there's a CGI teeth. I wish they would have used more practical effects with this. They overkill you with the loud noises during the horror effects. It's like, which is very common of horror films today. They use a lot of noise to try to and whereas the older horror films would use more subtlety to that. Even with the cons, it's a great horror movie. It's one of the best. In my opinion, it's one of the best horror films out there, because you don't get a lot of good storyline in horror films, and this one did it very well. I love the kids. I love the acting. The scary parts were well done. A little bit of the CGI took me out of it, but the scary parts were very well done. I'm going to give this a 12 out of 13. One of the best horror films, I think, of our generation.
Yeah, that's a great score. I'll harp on the actors a little bit too, one of my pros as well. But I'll call out 2 other ones. Sophia Lillis as Bev. This is like her first major role. So I think she did a great job. And Nicholas Hamilton as Henry Bowers. I felt like he really brought like a wide range of emotions to that bully character, man. You felt bad for Ben when he was getting punched in the face, and you could just, I mean, you were scared of Henry Bowers. Hell, I was, and I'm 40 years old. It's a very fun movie. Like you said, great storytelling, great comic relief throughout, and just the right amount of Easter eggs. Like the It fan would be able to just watch it and be like, oh, hey, there's something.
Yeah.
Cons, it does drag at times. It is 2 hours and 15 minutes, but it doesn't drag for long. You know what I mean? You're kind of, there's a little lull there when they're setting up the scene, and then you're just kind of like, okay, boy, what's next? But it doesn't last for long. For me, like you said, I think it's just a great movie, not only a great horror movie, but a great movie itself. If you haven't seen the first movie or read the book, you would be excited to see how the story ends. Like, oh, what they're going to do in part 2, you know, I want to see that. I can't in good conscience give it anything less than a 13 out of 13 donuts for me. This is one of the best in the discussion. It's the highest grossing, like you said. Definitely in the discussion for me as top 10 to 15 horror movies of all time.
All right, man. Wow. Good scores for It 2017 from Blood and Donuts podcast. That's impressive. I knew it was going to do well. I didn't know it was going to do that well. So that's awesome. We're about to jump into a discussion, scene by scene discussion. We're going to talk about major plot point spoilers. So if you haven't seen this or you haven't seen it in a while, why don't you go and watch it? Because I watched it on YouTube for $3.99. Chris, where'd you watch it?
I'm on Amazon, man. I guess I rented it on Amazon, and one of these days we're gonna find a movie that we don't have to rent anymore. We're gonna find it on Peacock or Netflix or something, but it's not gonna be next week either. So just get ready for that.
Here come the spoils. October 1988, 12-year-old Bill Denbrough crafts a paper sailboat for Georgie, his 6-year-old brother. Georgie sails the boat along the rainy streets of small-town Derry, Maine, only to have it fall down a storm drain. As he attempts to retrieve it, Georgie sees a clown in the drain who introduces himself as, "I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown." Pennywise entices Georgie to come closer. Then he bites his arm off and drags him into the sewer. Georgie.
What an opening, man. And this is a really iconic plot point in horror. Like, the miniseries doesn't show the arm biting off, but it's in the book, obviously. The when I think of like a yellow rain jacket or a red balloon,
yes,
like one behind me, I think of It.
Yeah.
Every time. That's just what you think of.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, this is so good. It's so intricate. You get to meet Billy. You get to meet Georgie, and you can see the brother camaraderie between these two. They give each other a hug. They love each other. Georgie goes down to the basement. It sets up the fear very well because he's scared to go down to the basement to get the wax to put on the paper boat. It's just a beautifully shot scene. Even the boat like coming down the floating water and everything. It just sets it up really well. And Pennywise, Skarsgård's eyeballs coming from the drain, and you see them in the darkness, and they illuminate very well. It's just a good scene in that type of way. And even the dialogue between Georgie and Pennywise is so good. It's so well done. You know, he's just like, "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," and he's like, "Well, I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown." You know, and he's like,
"Now we're not strangers."
Now we're not strangers.
Did you see the opener I sent you on YouTube?
I did not. I didn't get a chance to see that.
It's like it's a spoof opening. And it shows them talking like up to this point.
Yes.
And then Georgie just grabs the boat and runs off. And he's just standing there. He goes, "Shit."
That's what you're hoping.
Credits, like,
yeah, you know what's going to happen. But if you're like me, you're like, get the boat and run. Just go. You know, or just leave the boat and go make you another one. You know, like. Come on. It was just
Kids are stupid.
One sheet of paper. Following summer in June 1989, Billy and his friends Richie and Eddie and Stan run away from these older bullies. You got Henry Bowers and all of his cronies. Billy, still haunted by Georgie's disappearance, calculates that his brother's body may have washed up in a marshy wasteland called the Barrens. He recruits his friends to investigate, believing Georgie may still be alive. Ben and one of Billy's new classmates learns that the unexplained tragedies and child disappearances have plagued the town for centuries. Targeted by Bauer's gang, Ben flees into the Barrens and meets Billy's group. They find the sneaker of a missing girl named Betty Ripsom, and while Patrick is killed by Pennywise while searching the sewers for Ben. That was a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack in that paragraph. But man, those bully scenes, like I said, they're really effective. They just really make you hate that. And you see in the same scene, the adults see the bullying happening and they just don't care. They are not involved. They don't want any part of what the kids are doing. So it kind of isolates the kids in a way, like they're on their own. They have to figure out their own problems.
Yeah. And Billy, even, you speak about adults, he comes home and his dad is in the garage and his dad is like, why did you build this elaborate tunnel system out of his gerbil play, tunnels to, and it was to show of where the wastewater would have went. And he used maps and stuff like that. He goes, Georgie, his body would have been out here in the Barrens. And his dad said, Georgie's dead. What if your mother sees this? Kind of like
it down before your mother sees it.
Oh yeah. So you just see no love from Billy's parents. Obviously, Georgie's death had rocked their world as well, but they kind of forget. Yeah. They kind of forget that they have another son, Billy, and just by that little interaction, you get all of that, And I love how this film introduces these teenagers one by one, but you don't have to know their whole story. You just need to know. Yeah. You just need to know a little bit about them and what their fear is, because this movie is a horror movie. We don't need to know their whole life story. And it is 2 hours long, but they do a good job of developing each character just enough, just so we can know their fear.
Yeah, and I think you learn a lot more about the characters individually while they're with a group. Like everybody knows that Eddie's mom is overpowering, and they rib him for it. Everybody knows that they come to learn that Bev's dad is a perv, and they know that, and so it's really, you do kind of learn about them through their friendship as well.
Yeah, and so they find the fat kid. What's his name? The chubby kid. Ben. So they find Ben he's kind of getting beat up by these guys, and he kind of joins the gang at that point, right?
Yeah, he does. He's running from Henry, and then stumbles upon them, and then I don't think this is the rock fight scene. That's with Mike later, but yeah, he stumbles upon them and they just take him in as, hey man, you're one of the losers now.
Yeah. And I love that, how they just kind of absorb the outcast of this community into the losers club. And together they kind of like fight off the evils, and together. And I love that about this. Beverly Marsh, a girl who is bullied over her rumored promiscuity, also joins the group. Both Bill and Ben develop feelings for her. Later, the group befriends an orphan named Mike Hanlon after rescuing him from Bowers. Each member of the group has encountered terrifying manifestations of Pennywise. A headless undead boy is what Ben sees, a sink that spews blood. Only the children can see. That's Beverly. A diseased and rotting leper, Eddie. A disturbing painting coming alive. That's Stanley. Mike's parents burning alive. You got Mike, and a frightening phantom of Georgie. That's what Bill sees.
So my favorite out of that was like when I think it was the Georgie, where he's like, you'll float too, and then Bill comes up from the water. And then he slaps himself down on the stairs and like slithers down. It's so creepy, dude. What was your favorite?
It's good. I love the painting one. I also like there's the library scene. If you look over the shoulder of Ben, the librarian is looking at him like this and smiling. And I was just
telling Jessica that. We rewound it and I paused it. I'm like, that is the clown. Yeah. She's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps. It gives me such goosebumps. I was just like, oh my goodness. Because the boys don't even see that. That's there for us to play on your fear. The watcher, Chris. Mm-hmm. The person who's watching this.
That's a good point. point.
It's so good. Yeah. And then so you got Beverly Marsh here and all the guys. I love when it's like showing them stripped down to their underwear and they're jumping off the cliffs and then she's like basking in the sun and they're all caught staring at her, It just shows that adolescence of like what it would be like a girl to be added to the group and the tension, the sexual tension and stuff that would be there as a teenager. It was just so funny.
Right, yeah, and she's the first one that like jumps in the water. She's like, out of the way.
Yeah, there's like we just got a girl outdone by a girl, but I don't think teenage boys, young boys would just be standing there in their tidy whities. You would probably just swim in shorts.
Don't you remember Sleepaway Camp? Everybody, I mean, I'm surprised they weren't naked.
Oh, that's the truth. It's Sleepaway Camp. They went skinny dip. It was like all the boys just pulled all. It was like and then they all pulled their shorts.
No girls allowed.
We were like, why is this in there? That's hilarious. Now calling themselves the Losers Club, they realize that they are being stalked by the same entity. They refer to it as it. They determine that it appears as their individual worst fears, awakening every 27 years to feed on the children of Derry before resuming hibernation, and moves about by using the sewer lines, which all lead to an old stone well hidden under an abandoned house on, is it Neibolt Street? Or Neibolt Street?
Neibolt. And it took these kids half a movie to figure out what the teens in A Nightmare on Elm Street did in 10 minutes. Like, hey, we're all getting stalked by the same thing.
Yeah, that's funny. It did. It took half the movie for the illegal. I've seen it too, And I like how they likened this happening every 27 years. We're going through the cicadas right now. We got cicadas everywhere. And that's what they said. They said, so it's kind of like cicadas, And
right.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. And I put that in my notes there.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. And Ben has been doing lots of research on this. He's the new kid, so he has no friends, and he's had a lot of time to just spend at the library and kind of just research all the deaths through history of Derry. And he even knows the percentages of adults that die. He said, it's the percentage of murders and homicides in Derry is really high amongst adults and even higher amongst children against the nation as far as like what's normal.
And Ben is our go to the library and look through old newspapers. Yes. He is that entity in this movie.
Every horror movie has that, you have to
have it.
You gotta have it. But he did it already, so it's not at the very end.
Yeah, you don't. It's not boring.
Yeah.
When he's doing it, he's got somebody behind him and crap. But
yeah, he's already done it. After Pennywise attacks them, the group ventures to the house to confront it, only to be separated and terrorized as Pennywise gloats to Bill about Georgie. The losers regroup, and Beverly impales Pennywise through the head, forcing the clown to retreat. The group flees the house and begins to splinter, with only Bill and Beverly resolute in fighting him.
Yeah, this is where Mike's character could have shined too. He should have sided with Bill. But anyway, this is the scene where they first get to meet Pennywise. And the slobber that was coming down?
Yeah.
That was the teeth prosthetics, and like he literally couldn't swallow. So that was his real slobber. So they added it to the character's characteristics.
Oh my goodness.
Keeping him like slobbering everywhere.
Ooh,
so yeah.
That's crazy. There's like this old dilapidated house that's on Neibolt Street that they all walk by, and it's that house in town that everybody stays away from. So they end up, oh no, that's where he is. That's where the well is, in the basement of that, to get to where Pennywise stays, right?
Yeah. Could you imagine living next door to that thing?
No.
Like, we've been trying to sell this house for 10 years and we can't get out.
It'd be awful. Like, are you going to mow your grass, man? Come on. And there's that awful smell. Weeks later, after Beverly confronts and incapacitates her sexually abusive father, Pennywise abducts her. The Losers Club reassembles and returns to the abandoned house to rescue her. Bowers, who has murdered his abusive father after being driven insane by it, attacks the group. Mike fights back and pushes Bowers down the well. The losers descend into the sewers and find its underground lair, which contains a mountain of decayed circus props and children's belongings, around which the bodies of its child victims just float in midair. They do all float down there, don't they?
Yeah, I thought you said you didn't like. This is practical effects. I don't know what you're saying about CGI, but all the kids floating, that was all practical.
Right.
No, not really.
Sure.
No. So two things real quick. The first scene that they shot of the movie was Henry killing his dad.
Oh.
Don't know why, but that was the first scene they shot. And they deleted a scene where Bowers killed the rest of his gang. That was on Dead Meat. He was like, I was going to count those kills, but they didn't show it. So,
wow.
But anyway, yeah. So it showed them. He had them all sitting in the car with their necks cut.
That's crazy.
And it says that Beverly incapacitated her dad. I'm pretty sure that he's dead. Usually when I take a toilet lid to the dome and I lay there bleeding, I'm dead.
Yeah.
That usually happens.
Her dad is very touchy feeling, and he always says, "You're my little girl, aren't you?" And you can tell that and it doesn't explicitly show what he's done to her, but you know that he has.
Yeah. Her dad's like, do you think that you know that you worry me a lot?
Do you think you can slurp that cereal? Why do we always go back to him?
I'm sorry. We haven't done a black phone reference in a while, so I had to do it. It's a dad, an abusive dad. It has to fit.
Yeah, you're right. They're all the same, aren't they? But you're right. She takes that ceramic toilet lid. It's over with, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
If he lives through that, he's impressive.
Yeah.
He's incapacitated. Okay. And, but that's one of those moments where you're just like, yeah. But Bowers taking that knife into his dad, it's like a switchblade, right? And he just puts it right there and then hits the button and he goes, ooh. That was good, man.
I like the sound you made there.
The losers, they all go to the sewers. They're finding or Pennywise's lair down there. And did you see Pennywise? You finally get to see him dance, the dancing clown. That was a pretty good.
Finally.
That was a pretty good dance number, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's just like shuffling and moving kicking his feet out or whatever.
It's hilarious. Anyway, and so Beverly, she's floating in the air too. Mm-hmm. And her,
you got to look at the deadlights.
Yeah, and her eyes are white, but she's not completely gone, right?
Right. Yeah, she's. I think since she wasn't afraid of him, he hit her with the deadlights, which puts fear into her. And he, as he explained back in the house, he wants to get the fear in his victim because they taste better.
Oh,
tasty fear!
Tasty fear. I like that. Beverly, now catatonic after being exposed to bright lights inside its gaping mouth, is restored to consciousness when Ben kisses her. Bill encounters Georgie, but recognizes that he is in disguise as Pennywise. It takes Bill hostage, offering to spare the others and go into hibernation if they just let it feed on Bill. The losers reject this, battling with it while overcoming their various fears. It is eventually defeated and retreats deeper into the sewers, with Bill declaring that it will starve during its hibernation. After finding the remnants of Georgie's raincoat, Bill finally comes to terms with his brother's death, with his friends comforting him.
I thought that said confronting him for a second, but I like how when it's like changing into different forms and it lands on like Bev's dad, and she's like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll shove this iron spike down his throat." Like, why is that supposed to scare me?
Yeah. It wasn't much at all, was it?
No, it didn't take her long to just take him out.
Yeah, Mike takes out the bully, doesn't he? They're up there fighting.
Yeah, he falls down the well. I'm assuming he's dead, which would be crazy for part 2 because he plays a pretty big role in part 2.
Oh, Chris. So maybe he's not.
Well, he should.
Maybe he's not dead then, Chris. Yeah. And so then you have Georgie comes out, and Billy has to basically kill him.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah, he has to like say, "But you're not Georgie." And he kind of recognized that Georgie doesn't call the boat a she.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So-
yeah, because he said you always call it a she.
Yeah, he goes, "You always call it a she, Georgie." And like he saw that, so then he knew that that was a very special moment between him and Georgie, and Georgie would have remembered that because it was a big deal. And so they all start battling Pennywise, and he has to kind of retreat. And they're like, "You're going to starve." Richie has like a cool line.
I love it. I was about to talk about that.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about that.
He's like, Bill, you've really pissed me off. It's summer. We're supposed to be outside having fun. You punched me in the face. You did all this stuff, and I'm going to have to kill this effing clown.
That is so
swinging
good.
on him.
Yeah, it's so freaking good. It is so good. That's probably the coolest line in this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's a classic end of movie, line.
Yeah, and so you got Billy and you got Ben, who are all going after Beverly, right? Both of them. Mm-hmm. Ben is writing poetry, and they have this like connection in that type of way. But then Bill has this coming of age. Stutter leader, but he's becoming a leader type of deal.
Yeah,
and he ends up kissing Beverly as well.
Mm-hmm. At the end. Yeah.
So you have this you have this big question mark. Who's going to end up with Beverly? They need a part 2.
Yeah, they should. I mean, it really left us hanging.
Yeah, it really did. As summer ends, Beverly informs the group of a vision that she had while catatonic, where she saw them fighting it again as adults. The losers swear a blood oath that they will return to Derry as adults if it returns. After the others make their goodbyes and disperse, Beverly and Bill discuss her leaving the next day to live with her aunt in Portland. Before she leaves, Bill reveals his feelings, and they kiss. Okay, wasn't that?
And we didn't talk about it, but I love the cast that was on Eddie's arm when the bully girl wrote like loser, and he wrote like a V over the S.
I forgot all about that. She was like, she goes, "Oh, nobody signed your cast. Let me sign it." And then
I'll do it.
Yeah, she's over there. She wrote loser really big, but he put a V. I love that.
When they're like standing there with the blood oath at like a super serious moment, you see the cast, and I'm rolling, but it's like so sentimental, but it's funny at the same time.
Hilarious. So good. I enjoyed this film. I enjoyed revisiting it. I remember liking it in the movie theater, and I enjoyed it last night too. It's not like oh, I gotta watch this. It's kind of like I get to watch these kids. I get to watch them and their funny interactions, and it's just a good movie, man. I feel like most people would enjoy this if you could get over there's a little bit of gore, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, there's some gore and some terrifying scenes, some blood use, some bullying, carving letters into kids' stomachs. If you can get past all that stuff,
that's the thing.
Watch it with your kids.
I wouldn't go that far, but it did. I mean, most people have watched it. I mean, it made almost $1 billion. So
who hasn't seen it?
Yeah, so everybody's watched it 2017. But man, it was fun. I can't wait to get after the second part.
Maybe we need to do part 2 for sequel September, huh?
We got to get to that. All right, man. Good talk.
Hey, coming up next, guys, we got Late Night with the Devil, the original Friday the 13th, The Ring, and The Conjuring. So stay tuned and stay subscribed.
Yeah, stay subscribed. Thanks, guys.